Okay, so yeah, but that's a thing of debate, Dhruval.
Sir, what kind of debate? Were you there in the meeting? It was like good joke, I mean.
No, I was not, but I could. This was something that is there everywhere. But ठीक let it be. Let's
Sir,
get
वो
to.
मैंने उनकी website देखी थी. So what they described was literally, and I'm quoting from their website. They said that these attackers, they are either like trolls or they are petitioners. In either cases, they are not any terrorists or things like that. And being an educationist, it is their responsibility only to deconstruct and not to dismantle. They should have been very much precise in their wordings. These kind of idiotics that is going on around, in especially in the Western universities, might be the treading ground for, or at least a breeding ground for a future something very violent. Possibly, I do feel that in the next 5 to 10 years, we are going to face the wrath of the same, wherein
Yeah,
these things would come into account, because already we are seeing people who are, being, well, they are tortured, like not tortured exactly, but they are being isolated because they have been pointing out that there has been a few violent cases in BLM movement, and therefore they have been removed from their jobs and things like that. That shouldn't happen,
okay.
because that is freedom of speech, I mean.
Yes. Yeah, so that's what I said. It's a long, there's a lot on it. It was put nicely. You wrote it, it's good. But what we're planning to do today is also related to this. It's we had done a course on. I had asked you to do a course on intercultural communication earlier. Do you remember any of the takeaways from that? Anyway, there was a quiz, and most of you wrote, and I think most of you gave the quiz that I had asked you to give. वो सब था, but that is okay because that is something that is a part of. Maybe you might have known it, देखा होगा, किसी ने copy किया होगा, किसी ने नहीं किया होगा. That's okay. The major point is learning. So, do you remember anything, any specific, any of you? This is for everyone. Anything specific related to the course on intercultural communication that I gave you? What we are going to, our plan for today, I'll just outline our plan for today. Our plan for today is that I'm going to briefly, very briefly, maybe half an hour or so, less than that, spend some time on cross-cultural communication. To talk to you about cross-cultural communication, why it is a part of today's professional world. What are the different things that are related to it? And it's a good thing that you brought this up as a quote somewhere in this thing, because it is related to this. We'll come We'll come to that in a minute. But even then, when we think about it, we'll be talking, and just basically we'll talk about cross-cultural communication in a work setup, in a work organization, and then move on to the next level, which we call soft skills, because we are already a bit of what we call communication, written communication and professional communication to a certain extent. Now we're moving into the second part of our course, which is soft skills. We'll get into that. We'll be beginning with something today. That's our plan for today. So yes, when you put this quote up, and I was reminded of it, of many other things. Can you just tell me, any of you can just raise that, what are the reasons for our perception about people? Anyone? Any perception about someone? And in this, what is largely behind the perception about anyone? In you perceive different people, your first impression about people, or anything of that sort. What is it that guides that kind of a perception, or is behind that kind of a perception? Largely, broadly. Anyone would like to say? हम दूसरों के बारे में जब सोचते हैं या दूसरों को देखते हैं, कोई भी anyone in this world, we look at other people, we look at other meet different people, we see someone on the road, or we meet someone from another classroom or another department or anything of that sort. What is our perception? What guides our perception about that person? हम उनको जानते नहीं हैं, लेकिन फिर भी एक आइडिया बन जाता है कि शायद ही ऐसा है. So what is the reason behind it? What could be the reason behind it? Or perhaps if I were to say that my family members, my relatives, were formerly some of my relatives are those people who formerly lived in Pakistan. Now they are migrated to India or any other place, like related countries. जैसे पाकिस्तान के बारे में बात करो या फिर अफगानिस्तान या तालिबान, which is going on right now. There's a lot of debate that's going on at that. What is the thing that guides it? हमें लोगों के बारे में, जो भी कंट्री के बारे में हम बात करते हैं, कोई स्टेट के बारे में बात करते हैं, what is it that guides that our perception? कहाँ से आता है कि ये स्टेट ऐसा है और ये पर्सन इस स्टेट से है तो ऐसा हो? और this is even in Gujarat itself, different kinds of communities in the. What is it that makes you understand? Say पहली बार मैं देखता हूँ कि your name along with your surname, say for example Patel or Shah or Mehta. What is it that guides that? Okay, ये ऐसा है, अच्छा तो मतलब you have already, अच्छा तो ये यहाँ से है, okay ये पटेल है, ये शाह है, ये मेहता है. तो हमारे मन में what is the image that gets created? Let's begin there, because when cross-cultural communication comes in, or intercultural, we give you a course on intercultural communication. My topic today is cross-cultural communication. How do we understand culture as a subject, as a category? Anyone? हम कल्चर को कैसे समझते हैं? Culture is largely perception. हम दूसरे, now when I mean culture, it is not about, we are going to talk a few things about cross-cultural, but I want to talk about the world inside us, मतलब इंडिया की ही बात करो तो कितने तरह के कल्चर्स हमारे इंडिया में है और हम हर एक कल्चर को कैसे देखते हैं? How do we look at it? What is it that defines that kind of feel? Okay, he's a South Indian person, he's from Punjab, or he's a Sardar, or he's from the Northeast, he or she, or from anywhere. ये South India से है तो मतलब ये ऐसा होगा. What guides it? Anyway, you thought about that. Even in other countries, there's a lot of things which are related to it. I'll come to that in a second. But there's many things. So, what guides it? हमें पता कैसे हमें what is the thing that colors our perception about certain things? जिसके बारे में हम कुछ नहीं जानते, ज़्यादा कुछ जानते नहीं हैं. So, anything to start with, or you want me to say?
History guides it.
History.
The history,
Okay.
yes.
History. Okay. What else? Okay. So again, the word history is a contested area, because if you look at just the point what we call history, the question will come, whose history? So history is always something that is always written by. So there is a lot of debate on that. There is a lot of books on that. You might want to look at it. But majorly history के बारे में हम बात करते हैं, history of a particular nation. Okay, let's take South Africa, or those places like which people with the Europeans used to call the dark continent. Places like Uganda, or maybe South Africa, the Nigerian belt that we call Congo, and all those places. So how much the history of that place के बारे में हम कितना जानते हैं और कैसे जानते हैं? If you go by National Geographic's description of Africa, you will find that it's a biased. There's a lot of bias in the way in which America portrays the dark continent, and they give this word called the dark continent to them because it's actually dark, not in terms of the physical nature of the people, but as a continent. It's filled with forests. It's a very different world. वहाँ पे बहुत अलग है. लेकिन even places like now we know of Messi and we know of Ronaldinho and people like them, Brazil, Mexican, and all these places. But before that, at least 10-15 years back, it was a very different story. So there's a lot of literature on this, but I'm not going to get into that. I would definitely suggest one book to all of you if you are interested in reading. Any of you, it's called. It's just a suggestion. It's about perception again. We'll talk about that, but this is it. Just a minute. Let me just type it out. This thing is playing funny. I don't know how many of you have seen the title of this book and have read this book, 100 Years of Solitude. It's by an author called Gabriel Garcia Marquez, and he has described. He's a Latin American writer. Latin America is, you can see all those countries which are now in the glamorous world, like Brazil, Mexico, all those places comprise of Latin America. But if you look at Latin American world, वो जो दुनिया है उनकी, उसमें से हमें जितना how much do we understand of their cultures? What is it that works in their culture? How much do we judge about other people? ये सब उस बुक में बहुत अच्छी तरह से दिया गया है. It's a beautiful book. It won the Nobel Prize also. But it's a very old book, and there's a lot of things into it. तो वो बहुत अलग तरीके से वो story बताई गई है. Now, if you look at Latin America, any of those places in Latin America, for a very long time, it was under the rule of Spain. The Spanish people used to rule the place, like British used to rule India. Spain used to rule Latin America. And वहाँ पे क्या था कि there was a lot of focus on dictatorship. There was one guy who used to rule the entire thing for years together. So there was no democracy, there was no election. It was just one person ruling the entire thing. And if you're having the freedom of speech, as you mentioned there, when you're working under dictatorship, your freedom of speech gets questioned, or you cannot express your freedom of speech because your leader is a dictator, or your supremo is a dictator. You would be caught and killed. So what Marquez did is, I'm talking about this, and I'll bring it to the what we call perception and cross-cultural in a minute. So those people who, so what Marquez did was that he tried to, whenever he wrote, if you read the novel, you would पता चलेगा कि ये Latin American history तो है नहीं, लेकिन है. It's about Latin American history. It is 100 years of their servitude to the Spanish government. So it's about that. लेकिन वो novel उस तरह से लिखी नहीं गई है. So you cannot directly challenge the government. You cannot directly challenge the ruling powers because it's a totalitarian it's a dictatorial regime. But you still can. So this is what Marquez has tried to do in the novels. It's a beautiful novel. You should, if you get your hands on it, you should definitely read it. It's available online as well. 100 Years of Solitude. The author is Gabriel Garcia Marquez. So the thing was Dhruval started with this global Hindutva and all those things. So which you're discussing. You should read. I don't know how many of you have read this in 100 Years of Solitude. Now, this is about Latin America. Now, coming to South America, that is the part with. I'm sure all of you must have been aware of this thing, this concept. How many of you are not aware of this? I guess many of you might be aware of this at least. Or if you're not aware of this, you would definitely be aware of this man's name. Don't tell me you don't know this guy. Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela is one of those people who is a person who gave his life for eradicating the difference between eradicating black slavery. Another person was Martin Luther King Jr., but he's one person. So there are many Indians who keep saying that India has a history of exploitation and there are many things हुआ है, कास्ट के नाम पे होता है, जेंडर के नाम पे होता है, सोसाइटी के नाम पे होता है. तो हमारे देश ने बहुत सारे बुरे वक्त देखे हैं, ऐसा. True, not a single without a single figment of doubt that yes, we have had a dark past and there was a lot of exploitation that is still going on if you look at it, but at a very subtle level. But yes, if you look at places like South Africa where apartheid, you might, when you read books, there is one book which is very famous. It's called. I'm just putting the names of the books there. It's called Color Purple by Alice Walker. There is an author.
Hello.
Yes,
सर
sir.
आप बोल रहे हो that India has a dark past. तो फिर सवाल ये है then why were we we were the attraction for the Britishers and the Mughals. ये भी तो
Okay.
एक सवाल है ना. And people also
No,
say
no.
कि
See,
हमारे
see.
में नहीं just a second let me हम बात करेंगे पूरा.
Mhm.
तो लाइक आप बोलते हो कि ये कास्टिज्म और ये सब ठीक है, मैं मानता है कि ये चीज थी, नो डाउट, बट क्या वो दूसरे कल्चर्स में नहीं थी? इट वाज देयर. नाउ द क्वेश्चन इज, क्या वो आयरन क्लेडिंग थी जैसे दूसरे कल्चर्स में है? दैट इज अंडर क्वेश्चन. दैट कैन यू मूव फ्रॉम वन कास्ट टू द अदर? लाइक मैं एक एग्जांपल दे सकता हूँ. वालियो लुटारो अगर जो ब्राह्मण बनी सके, वालियो लुटारो इज सो दे आर दी एससी एसटी ओबीसी सब कह सकते हो. अगर वो ब्राह्मण बन सकता है तो वो आयरन क्लेडिंग कैसे हुआ? भाई रावण जो है वो भी तो ब्राह्मण था, तो वो क्यों दानव बन गया? यू नो.
Okay.
बट ये भी तो एक सवाल है ना. why are we not discussing the entire history through and through in the same way and fashion that it is described? चलो आपके कुछ assumptions हो सकते हैं कि हाँ भाई ये तो ये है वो है, दूसरा ये है वो है. Thirdly, my most important question is, हम हर बार ये बोलते हैं कि Hinduism is casteist. I accept it, okay. But the scriptures come from Manusmriti. Okay. Now is Manusmriti as important book in Hinduism कि वो हर एक के घर पे मिल जाएगी? ये भी तो
Uh,
एक क्वेश्चन है ना. I guess we should answer also that one. We should
yes.
approach that question as well.
Okay. I'll
With
answer.
logic.
I'll answer your question. No text in any religion. So you say Manusmriti. Okay. But who interpreted Manusmriti? That is the first thing. So did you like, and if you look at the culture that India has, I'm not bad mouthing anything. I'm just saying that this is a larger question. आप जो बोल रहे हो उस perception को समझ के ही मैं बात कर रहा हूँ. Like people, like if you read works by others, I'm going to write. It's just for Dhruval actually, since you brought this up. I'm sure if Dhruval is talking about this, you must have read about this guy, Ramchandra Guha, and his brother, Ranajit Guha. So you might want to read on this because what Dhruval is saying till now, whatever he was saying, with reference to history, Indian history, and inclusive understanding of what all aspects that history has been talking to us about, is very easily covered in Ramchandra Goa and Ranajit Goa's books. That how is Indian history, and it's not a biased word, it's just that we are trying to look at history from multiple perspectives, not one history. So if you look at history from just one side, as Dhruval said, you would find that history is always biased because it has been written and propagated by many people. For example, just a very simple thing. How many of us understand the Quran or the Bhagavad Gita or the Bible properly? We have read, unless you know that, okay, and if you look at it, खुद भी रामचंद्र गोवा रणजीत गोवा की बुक्स में और भी बहुत सारे ऑथर्स में है. इस क्लास में शायद कोई किसी को ज्यादा इंटरेस्ट ना हो, इसलिए फिर मैंने उसके बारे में ज्यादा बात नहीं किया. लेकिन there is another person who has written about this. You might want to read that as well, and if you are interested in this kind of writing, Romila Thappar's history of
सर आपने
yes.
जिन दोनों हिस्टोरियंस का नाम लिया, पहले हम उनकी बात कर लेते हैं, ठीक है. द सुप्रीम कोर्ट ऑफ इंडिया accepts and acknowledges the fact that these two were primary, like they had misbehaved in front of the court and they had misquoted the scriptures, historical scriptures. This is their history. Okay, this is Supreme Court of India saying it, not me. B. Now coming to these questions that you said, Quran, Bible और गीता, मतलब तीनों किताबें मेरे लिए तीनों ही important है. I मतलब अपने को उन चीजों में नहीं पढ़ना है. But here's where the basic conflict comes between an Abrahamic religion and a non-Abrahamic religion. An Abrahamic religion has very clear cut understanding कि इस किताब के अंदर इस वर्स का यही translation हो सकता है, right? You cannot alter that. Whereas any non-Abrahamic religion, whether you consider, I guess Jews are Abrahamic, but they still have done a few changes here and there. Even Christianity has done to a certain extent. There was an entire renaissance that happened, and remember, it happened in the 18th century once the printing press was out.
And
right?
secondly,
Much the same way.
Bimal,
Much the
uh,
same way, even Hinduism went through a lot of cycles of changes. Even today, if you see, when we say about casteism and these are things, I do accept that it is happening. There is no denial of that fact. But the question is that are we doing genuinely anything to change it, or aren't we doing it? To be honest, we aren't doing it. We are just, what we are doing is we are taking a high moral stance, which doesn't work. है ना? आप
but
क्या
there are
कर रहे हो?
people.
आप मेरिटोक्रेसी को डिफेम कर रहे हो. कोई स्टूडेंट यदि 29 आउट ऑफ 30 लेकर आ रहा है, उसको आप प्रेफरेंस नहीं दे रहे हो, आप 21 आउट ऑफ 30 को दे रहे हो अंडर द नेम ऑफ SC ST OBC. आप क्या कर रहे हो? आप कम्युनिटीज के हिसाब से कास्ट पॉलिटिक्स कर रहे हो और वोट बैंक्स बना रहे हो. बाय आप आई मीन नॉट यू, बट द इंडियन पॉलिटिशियंस एंड whosoever has been responsible for this. Are we doing genuinely anything on the ground? No. एक छोटा सा एग्जांपल, 2014 या 15 में देयर वाज दिस KBC एपिसोड wherein there was this community, मूसर कम्युनिटी नाम है. अभी तो उनमें अच्छा खासा लाइक बेसिक डेवलपमेंट हुआ है फ्रॉम व्हाट आई नो फ्रॉम माय सोर्सेस. मतलब मैं जिन पॉडकास्ट और उन लोगों को सुनता हूं उनसे. सो लाइक तो मूसर कम्युनिटी का नाम मूसर, मूस मतलब द माउस, दोस पीपल हु हैव बीन ईटिंग माउस. સાંભળીને ચીતરી ચડે છે. इमेजिन करिए, इनके तक रिजर्वेशन पहुंचा ही नहीं है, इनके तक वो चीजें पहुंची ही नहीं है. पिछले 70 करीबन उस टाइम पे यदि मैं कहूं तो पिछले 70 सालों में हमने कुछ भी नहीं किया उनको बेसिक लेवल पर लाने के लिए. एंड देन वी आर टॉकिंग कि अरे भाई कास्टिज्म भी है, ये भी है, वो भी है. जो लोग कास्टिज्म की बात कर रहे हैं 2 दिन बाद वही कहेंगे अरे देखो यूपी के अंदर ना ये कास्ट इसको वोट कर रही है. तो भाई वो तो तुमने बोला ना. Then you are demeaning meritocracy in this way. Secondly, this has become an alternating tool to demean Hinduism as well, which is problematic because अगर आप एक रिलीजन को कॉल आउट करने के बजाय what I say is you call out every religion. क्या क्रिश्चियनिटी में कास्टिज्म नहीं है ना भाई? उनके में भी है, क्या है वो प्रोटेस्टेंट और कहते हैं कैथोलिक, हाँ, और उनमें भी सब फैक्शंस है. Then why aren't we calling the same? Why is NCERT not discussing the same? Why is Gujarat state textbooks not discussing the same? Then why aren't these dismantling things and these dismantling idiotics happening for the same religions? भाई क्या आप मेरे को एक बात बताओ, आर्टिकल 377 जब रिमूव हुआ था, that is that LGBTQ rights movement, who were the people for the against party of removal of article 377? There were 3 parties involved. One was I guess, was it it was Sunni Waqf Board, and the 2 others were 2 churches from Northeast. Then why aren't we also calling out those things? The problem isn't that you call out one religion. If you want to call out all religions, or you don't do anything. That is the best way of doing it. And when you call out, don't just call out. Give us valuable suggestions that can be actually be implemented on ground and in past, and lay out the targets. कि भाई नेक्स्ट इतने सालों में हम इन कम्युनिटीज को SC में से रिमूव कर देंगे, ST में से रिमूव कर देंगे, OBC में से रिमूव कर देंगे. क्यों? क्योंकि इन कम्युनिटीज ने इतना डेवलपमेंट देख चुके होंगे. आर वी हैविंग एनी प्लान लाइक दैट? नो. The SC ST OBC Act is just a way, मतलब to be honest, it's just a way to do your caste politics. तो फिर तो छोड़ दो ना कि आप डेवलप होना चाहते हो और यू नो ये सारे गुलदस्ते जो हम बांट रहे हैं, मतलब मे बी आज भाजपा बांट रही है, कल कांग्रेस बांटेगी, तो फिर वो तो छोड़ ही दो ना. देन व्हाई से सेक्युलरिज्म और ये और वो? मच द सेम वे और सेक्युलरिज्म इज एज ब्रॉड एज अदर थिंग्स. जैसे ये बात हुई वैसे ही सेक्युलरिज्म है. Why aren't the same governments taxing only Hindu temples and only a few specific Hindu temples? भाई यदि टैक्सेशन होगा तो सबका होगा, वरना नहीं होगा. That is secularism ना.
Yeah.
What we are doing essentially in the name of humanities, and sorry to say sir, but Indian universities के अंदर humanities के नाम पे क्या हो रहा है? Cut, copy, paste methodologies that we are using. We are copying a first world idea. We are not understanding the human caliber there. We are not understanding उनका क्या technological capability है, हमारा क्या है, और हम उसे सीधा पेस्ट कर देते हैं. What we aren't doing is हम उसका एनालिसिस नहीं कर रहे कि वो कितने हद तक सही हो रहा है, क्या प्रॉब्लम्स हो रही है, and then we are saying that we failed miserably, just like Americans failed to spread freedom and democracy in Afghanistan. because that wasn't the thing that was accepted in Afghan by the Afghan people.
Yeah. So yeah. So Dhruval, I think it was a long discussion exactly on what I've been trying to say. Have you read 100 Years of Solitude?
No.
Do read it, because one thing that I can say, and from a humanities perspective, as a student of literature and language and art, I can say that one thing which is there, जो आप बोल रहे हो, ये जो सवाल आप रेज कर रहे हो, ये सवाल एक तरह से रेज नहीं हो रहे हैं कहीं जगह पे. You are right, perfectly right, nothing wrong. And a holistic way of looking at it is not being done, which is also okay. Agreed. But what is being done, therefore, is that when you look at any form of art or any form of poem or anything of that sort, like if I'm talking specifically when I talk of art, it includes everything. Do you think that this bias is there in art as well? If yes, you can, of course, we are ready to. But what happens is that it will eat into our class time, and I don't think, apart from you, no one is saying anything. And we are eating into the class time. But it's okay. We can have a specific debate on that. I'd love to have it, because yes, this is a very pertinent area which you have brought up. That ये बहुत जरूरी है कि इस तरह की चीजें डिस्कस हो. Regarding रामचंद्र गुहा and रणजीत गुहा, those people, मैं उनके personally उनका fan नहीं हूँ. मुझे सिर्फ उनका ये अच्छा लगता है कि they are those people who have tried at least in their own position to talk about something that people don't really talk about. What happened to them, politics क्या है, क्या हुआ, नहीं हुआ, they misbehaved in the court, or they did whatever and they worked against the law and justice of the system, is something that I'm looking at it. Yes, we cannot divorce the person from the work. Yes, I agree. That is not there. वो तो नहीं. लेकिन I'm looking at people, and there is a long list to this, that people who have tried. There is another person called Sudhir Kakkar who keeps writing on this. I forgot his name. एक और है, सुदीप्ता कविराज नाम का एक बंदा है. He also keeps writing on this. These things are related to the inclusivity which you are talking about. कि हम एक religion के बारे में, particularly एक society के बारे में, या कोई भी society के बारे में हम biased view नहीं रख सकते. अगर रख रहे हैं तो सब society के बारे में बोलो. For example, you cannot call the British completely British education system is something that is changing. If you are there's not really a cut graft kind of a thing. हो रहा है, but that is the knowledge of convenience. लेकिन if you look at the education policy, it's not policy as a government policy, but the education system, it is being tailored to match the education system in particular communities. So if you look at that, है हो रहा है at a very minuscule level. It is not garnering that much attention. Or of course, as long as there is education is in the hands of politics, or there is a political influence in a certain way, certain truths and certain ways of looking at it will always be masked unless you have power to change it. आप लोग ट्राई करते हो, एक मास मोबिलाइजेशन मूवमेंट होती है जिसमें बोला जाता है नहीं इसको चेंज करना चाहिए, and there's a huge mass mobilization movement. You might have noticed one thing: for any change to take place in society, a lot of mass movement is required. कोई भी चीज को हटाने के लिए या कोई भी एक नई व्यवस्थिति यानी institutionalized कोई भी चीज को लाने के लिए, लॉ को लाने के लिए, you require a massive change of movement. वो political नहीं कह रहा हूँ, from anyone, from it could be an activist, it could be literature, it could be language, it could be anything. वहाँ से complete mass movement की जरूरत है. It doesn't happen overnight, as you rightly said. But what is required, as you said, correct, I agree with you that this is there. अब मैं ये कहूँगा कि हम इसको holistically देखने की जगह एक चीज है इसमें ध्रुवल, you read a lot. ये मैं जानता हूँ. How many of us read? I read, of course. How many of us in this class has the knowledge which you have? वो भी है कि हम कितना जानते हैं किसी चीज के बारे में. आपने 4 बुक्स पढ़ रखी है, आपने ज्यादा पढ़ रखा है इस चीज के बारे में. You hang out with the right kind of crowd, or the crowd whatever it is, and you have exposure to a different kind of worldview. Agree? How many of us in any society, not Indian, any society has exposure to this kind of a knowledge? when you have that kind of exposure of the knowledge, these questions will get raised not at the student level, not just at the student level, but at the level of a whole world. लेकिन उसमें टाइम लगेगा, बहुत टाइम लगेगा, बिकॉज आप जो बुक्स पढ़ते हो या मैं जो बुक्स पढ़ता हूँ, जिस तरह से चीजें हैं, it can be of any ideological leading. It could be completely Hindutva, it could be communist, it could be secular, it could be anything. But there are many. I don't want to get into that. Let's skip this. We can keep it as a discussion if we want to discuss this any further. But yes, my point here, although we have been trying this, and you're more than welcome to discuss this in a private chat. We'll discuss it, no issues. Let's just move on because we are already at 3 o'clock. And I need to complete cross-cultural with you before I go on to the stuff. Is it okay, Dhruval? Shall we move on? It's a long debate, Dhruval. बहुत ज़्यादा इसमें बात करने को बहुत कुछ है.
Yeah. And just like a footnote, I usually also have a very low key of Hindutva types. The problem is that they aren't very knowledgeable. वो logic से कर नहीं सकते. उनको चाणक्य ने अर्थशास्त्र और तर्कशास्त्र दिए, इन गधों को वो भी नहीं आता है मैनिपुलेट.
नहीं, मेरा बात यह है कि हम लोग जितना पढ़ते हैं, जितना हमारा एक्सपोजर है, उस तरह से हम नॉलेज को, हम एक चीज को बहुत सारी जगहों से देखना शुरू करेंगे. हम जब तक नहीं देखते हैं तब तक, या फिर लोगों में वो नॉलेज नहीं है, तब तक हम कर नहीं पाएंगे. दैट इज व्हाट आई स्टार्टेड विद टुडे. व्हाट इज आवर परसेप्शन अबाउट एनीथिंग इन द सोसाइटी, हाउ ओपन इट इज, हाउ रेलेवेंट इट इज, हाउ मच डू वी नो और हाउ मच वी डोंट नो. हमें बुक्स में से पता चलता है, वीडियोस में से पता चलता है, या फिर किसी मूवीज में से पता चलता है. And I would say that yes, art has this thing that we do it in a certain way. बहुत सारी चीजें हैं. Like if you look at the Hindi movie industry, the movie industry there is a lot of bias. And if you want to see a little bit more bias, you go to the South Indian movie industry, you will see a lot of bias against women. There are some really good movies which have done a lot of job, a lot of work, but there is an entire spate of artists and writings. If you look at even an innocent, it's not an innocent movie, but a movie like Bahubali, for example, look at the way women are treated in the movie, the women characters, and it is just one minuscule part. I'm not saying that American movies or British movies don't do it. मैं ये कह रहा हूँ कि it is there across, or we do it unconsciously. At times it is done unconsciously, at times it is done consciously. लेकिन उस चीज को उस तरह से समझना और उस चीज को आगे ले जाने के लिए उस तरह से इसे क्रिटिकली देखना बहुत जरूरी है. And how many of us would look at a Rajnikant film or an Amitabh Bachchan film or any other film for that matter, or a Prabhas film, and see that this is something which has got a lot of bias. There is something wrong that is happening in the portrayal of certain characters in any kind of novel, movie, poem, whatever it may be. हम में से कितने लोग इसके बारे में सोचते हैं कि ऐसा हो सकता है, ऐसा है कि हम लोग इसे बायसली दिखा रहे हैं. हम लोग आधे से ज्यादा लोग go to the movies to get fun. You know that everyone does it. I also go for movies for fun. But yes, I do not miss out on the fact that there is a lot of bias. But what can we do about it? There are counter movies that are being produced where the characters that have been considered to be marginalized are portrayed in have the chance to tell their story. So yes, there is a counter movement that is happening. There is a balancing that is happening, but it is at a very minuscule level. So minuscule that we don't notice it. हो रहा है बहुत सारी चीजें at a very fundamental level हो रहे हैं. लेकिन it is so small that it is the powerful, the more macro discourses as we call it, get a better choice, and they have more voice than these people. तो वो एक लंबा discourse है, उसमें नहीं जाएंगे. There is a lot to it. If we we'll do it in a private chat or discuss that. Anyone else except Dhruval? I think Dhruval is the only person speaking in this classroom. Anyone else would like to talk about what the topic that I put up for you? Perception, about how do we develop the perception? I've already answered it yet. If anyone would like to add, you can. But I see a lot of silence, which is fine. Okay, let's move on. Actually, teachers love silence because then I don't have to nothing to discuss. Just talk. Okay. So yeah. So let's start very quickly. Let's just go through what I wanted to say. and finish off this part because since it's a you have already done this, so oh my God. Can you see this? I think you can see it. Just look at two slides, not too much on this because I want to just talk about two. So at a very fundamental level, when we talk about culture, these are some of the aspects that are part of any culture around the world. The aspects of any culture. It can begin with working schedules to language. Language is a major part because that is how any culture communicates. If any of you have read uh, this guy, I'm sure the world must have read it, but I don't know about others. Well, I would suggest this guy to you. His name is Michel Foucault. Uh, he has written a lot on many things related to that, and his major area has been in the area of how power works in society. Nature of power. How does power work in society? So there are around 7 books which are there on it. There's Archaeology of Knowledge, for the prison, something like that, prisons and asylums. And then there are several books. There are around 8 books of this guy. It's a beautiful and ऐसी चीज है कि it is not very heavy to read if you can go online and look at it. He's one of those people who have worked on it. Now, why did I mention Michel Foucault? Michel Foucault is one of those people who said that language is something that exists within a particular society. It is what gives that society the power. It's power. Language is the power. Now, for any society, there is no language beyond a particular. So, for example, in a particular community, the language is the strength. Like if you look at any history for that matter, one of the key things has been language. Now, you may say when I say language, I'm not saying about written text. I'm talking about, and if you go a little back into any kind of world history, you will find that written text, writing, language में आया है, culture में आया, that has come very late. Largely any community, Africa से लेके India में लेके Egypt में लेके कहीं भी ले लो, the written works से ज़्यादा most of it has been oral in nature. And then the script came, yes, the hieroglyphic script in Egypt, your Hindi and Devanagari and all those scripts in India, you have the South African, you have this Aborigines have a different thing in Australia, the Inuits have a different language script, everything. They used to draw and they used to paint and they used to have language and all. But largely it has been oral in nature. Even today, more than the written world is, but giving cognizance to what the world says, you might also want to look at the world since you triggered this discussion for the 10 minutes. I'd like to bring it to your notice that written text, जो किताबों में लिखा गया है, उस तरह की चीजें have created an impact on how we look at society. Because there is something in concrete writing. And one of the things is, of course, culture always operates through language. Okay, you know it, and I'm not going into it. I mean, looking at it at a very simplistic level. Medical cure, many people, for medical cure, my favorite example always has been the Karate Kid, the movie Karate Kid, if any of you have seen that. You have this Will Smith Jr. acting in that movie, and you have Jackie Chan. And you would have seen that in the last part of the movie, he uses this acupressure heat cups to cure the problems of cure the injury that the boy has when he has a fight with during the last part of the tournament. Now, this is a culture which is there in the Chinese culture. They use this, and it's a form of acupressure. It's an old method. Like in India, how many medicinal practices do we have? We have the Indian, of course, we have the Indian methods, that is Siddha, Unani, all these kinds of things. Majorly, people learn by looking at how do we animals को follow किया करते थे. If you look at the Indian thing, people used to follow the animals. जानने के लिए था very simple. मैंने ये देखा हुआ है और ये आप लोगों ने भी देखा होगा कि कुत्तों को जब बीमारी होती है, what do they do? They have a stomach problem. They go and eat some kind of grass and then they go and vomit it out. But what kind of grass are they eating? या हम खाएंगे तो हमें तो कुछ होने वाला नहीं. They know. Similarly, in the olden times, people used to follow different kinds of medicinal paths. If you look at The allopathic medicines that we have today, that is a different world. वो एक अलग शास्त्र, completely it's a different thing. We have it in our country, we have it rooted in our country. But in every country, in every culture, there are certain medicinal practices which are unique to that particular culture. It is there and people follow it, some people don't follow it. People do believe that it takes a lot of time. Ayurveda for that matter has a different story. वो हम उसमें नहीं जा रहे हैं. मैं बस ये बताने की कोशिश कर रहा हूँ कि what are the elements of a particular culture and what are the things that we need to keep in mind when we talk about cross-cultural communication. These are the aspects. One, of course, is language, the other is medical care, third is religion, another big contested area. Which books do I follow, which gods do I worship, what is my religion, I have no religion. Now, we must understand that there is one difference here. Having no faith in God, that is atheism, is also religion. तो भगवान पे विश्वास नहीं रखता हूँ, तो that is called atheism. That is also a kind of religion. ऐसे बहुत सारी चीजें. Child rearing methods, polygamy, monogamy is practiced in different cultures. वो भी एक part है. But that is a part of a particular society. वो उसके society में है. Who are we to say that that is right or wrong? लेकिन है. Food. This is one of the beautiful parts of culture. If you want to explore culture, there was a very interesting documentary which came out a few years. I don't know, it was in the regional language, so I cannot share it with you. This guy started, it was before the COVID started. So when the COVID outbreak started and this lockdown started, this guy stopped everything and came back to his hometown. But he had gone all the way, he had started to move to different parts of cultures and different parts of, and basically understanding what are the different kinds of cuisines that are available throughout India and in the world. So unka similarity kya hai? He has traveled extensively, so he could relate to different kinds of things. So food is one thing. Folk art, in India you have different folk arts, in the world also you have. Some of you might say that the tomato festival is a fitful waste of vegetables, which is in Spain. I would say that the tomato festival in Spain has a cultural significance. वो ऐसा क्यों है, उसका एक reason है. It's not just that the bullfights is now almost not there. है, अभी भी है. But the tomato festival, for example, I would say it's a massive destruction of so much valuable tomatoes in the country. But yes, they say that okay, it's fine because it's a part of a celebration. Jokes about different cultures, communities, Africans, Americans, Punjabis, South Indians, whoever. Manners, how do you treat others? That is there in the language as well. The difference between tu and aap. Tu kaisa hai or aap kaise hai. So there is a difference there in basic Hindi, but it's there in different cultures. How do you look at that? And one of the people who pay a lot of attention to manners is, if you can look at it, are the Japanese and the Chinese who have a lot of. Whatever I have read about it, and my reading may be limited, but whatever I have understood from it, I found out that there's a lot of sophistication in their culture, in the way in which they behave, in the way there's a lot of sophistication compared to places like America, the white America particularly, not the black America. The white America, which is very predominantly strong, if you look at it, unfortunately or unfortunately for them, and clothing and dressing, so and so forth. Now, these are largely those aspects which form a part of any culture. Any culture in the world has got these aspects. It begins with, you can see it, working schedules. Are you a nocturnal person? Are you like if you look at it, one of the examples which I keep giving about working schedules is about timing, punctuality, and how much value does a person give to punctuality. In India, it is morely, if you look at it, there is a log maaf karte hain agar if you are late. But in certain cultures, it is generally seen that you don't. It is not seen as rude. It is seen that you do not value others' time. Say for example, in India, there are people who switch on fans and lights and go home. सोचते हैं कि वो वैसे भी वो क्यों ना के बंद करके चला जाएगा, तब तक फैन और लाइट ऑन रहते हैं. वर्किंग शेड्यूल का एक और पार्ट है. सो दिस इज इनबिल्ट इनटू देयर कल्चर दैट व्हेन आई लीव द ऑफिस आई स्विच ऑफ द फैन एंड लाइट बिकॉज़ इट्स अ वेस्ट ऑफ इलेक्ट्रिसिटी. सो दैट प्रिंसिपल्स, ये सब चीजें हर जगह पे अलग-अलग है. Some people follow it, some people don't. But some people follow it as if it is a rule for them. They have been taught in that, तो लोग करते हैं. Working schedules, more importantly, timings, working timings of office. And is there a personal and professional barrier, demarcation, not barrier, demarcation. Okay, professional life I go to my office, I reach there at 9, I leave at 5. So this is my office time. Office work is only handled during that time. And after that, after 5 p.m., no one is supposed to. There are several cultures wherein the people give only their office numbers. Mobile numbers are given to very close colleagues and your bosses or people who are really close to you. उनको ही आप मोबाइल नंबर देते हैं. बाकी आपके पास ऑफिस नंबर या एक्सटेंशन नंबर देते हैं. उसका एक रीजन है because you call me during office hours, they'll be happy to help you. When you call me on my phone, on my mobile phone, and I've left the office already, and in India, if you look at this Indian working cultures में देखोगे तो ये चलता है आता है उसमें. ओके सर मैं कर लूंगा या फिर मैं घर जाके करता हूँ. नहीं करते, करना भी नहीं चाहिए actually, because you're in office, you're compromising your work, your life in the at your home for your work, and that is not done. India mein, and in many places I've seen this exploitation happening. India more importantly because it's there in India and I know about India only more. I've not seen other places. But one thing I can say about people who have not worked, who have worked outside, is that ye cheez hai. One of my cousins is working with Amazon. So he used to tell that he's very close, his boss and extremely close colleagues only have his mobile number. The others have office numbers. अगर कोई चाहिए तो मतलब बॉस कॉल कर सकता है, but he cannot force you. Can you come to office right now and complete this work? It's very urgent. I can say that I'll work from home. You cannot force me to come back to office. But in many places it happens. Look करते हैं, that is they are not getting into that. So working schedules. What are my working schedules? How am I working? Is there a work-life balance? These all are ingrained into particular cultures. If you look at certain cultures, Saturday, Sundays, like they all believe Saturday, Sundays to be weekends. If you look at the Arabian countries, you will find for them it's Thursday and Friday, due to certain religious reasons. Because उनका वो जुमा का टाइम होता है या जो भी उनका प्रेयर का टाइम होता है, so they keep Thursday and Friday to be as holidays. Even holidays, working schedule. If I'm on a vacation, I'm not obliged to answer any office call. Can we expect that in India? No. And bosses also didn't think about it when they call people on Sundays and they asked them to come on Sundays and work. On a holiday, I cannot ask someone from a different company, from a different culture or from a different cross culture, from an outside country. I possibly cannot ask him to come and work because he would definitely think it's a holiday. You're asking me to come. So there's people who value that working schedules is a very important thing, and these are some of the aspects. We'll just quickly go through the last part before we go on to the. This is the thing that I want you to remember. These things. These are the cross-cultural etiquettes across the world. Greetings. How do you greet each other? What roles do business cards play? Do you need to give a business card? And how do you treat a business card? For example, in Japan, it is rude if you take the business card just with your hand. ऐसे आप accept करते हो, pocket में आपने business card रख दिया. It is considered to be rude because they believe that business cards, I'm giving you my business cards, I'm giving you my business. I'm trading my company to you. मैं बता रहा हूँ कि ये मेरा company है जो मैं आपको बता रहा हूँ. So you should treat it with respect. What people do generally is that they get business cards, they put it in a pocket or they put it in a wallet that they have and then put it at somewhere. तो कभी भूल भी जाते हैं कि ऐसा कोई business card हुआ करता है. So these people look very carefully as to how you're treating their business cards. Are you treating the business card with respect or are you treating it just casually? If you're treating it casually, then they will also think that yeah, आदमी casual बहुत है. So this is there in certain places, It's not. How do you greet? In certain cultures, there is kissing, like in French, but you don't go and kiss anyone. there is a etiquette for that. So do you really do that? Do you know about it? Degrees of formality. So during parties or there's a gala event or something like that, what are you expected to do? Are you expected to dress up informally and come for the program, or if it's a party you can come informally? Question. You need the point which I'm trying to make through these aspects is that these are greetings, degree of formality, gift touching, eye contact, deportment, emotion, silence, eating, body language, and punctuality. These are the points which are different in every culture across the world. And it's a duty, if you're working in a global world, it's important that we understand these 8-9 aspects clearly while interacting with outsiders, not outsiders, people not from India. meeting someone outside India. He may be an American, African, whoever it may be. That's not our question. The question is, do you know what are their greeting patterns? Do you know how much? What is their degree of formality? Do they accept gifts? Is gifts giving considered to be appropriate? Touching. Can you touch them? Can you shake hand with them, or can you touch them? Or when you feel if you have an Arabian friend who's somewhere in Jordan or some other place, is it okay to put your hand across? We do that when you have friends. I've seen students putting their hands on the other. I've seen colleagues putting their hands on the other person shoulder. So yeah, wonderful. Is that acceptable? India, it's acceptable. Is it acceptable in other cultures? You may be a very good friend of the person, but does he accept that? ये acceptable है कि नहीं है? Eye contact. Do you make direct eye contact? Is it considered to be polite? Deportment. So what kind of things would you think in terms of conservative, formal dressing, casual dressing, whatever? Emotions. Is it okay to display emotions in a professional network? Or when I say emotions, it means extreme emotions, anger, sadness, frustration, whatever. Can you show those emotions in public or in a professional environment? Is it possible? Is it professional to use that? Some people may say it's yes, some people may say no. To you, completely up to you. But you need to know whether those cultures actually believe in these things or not. नहीं है तो उसके हिसाब से we have to move. That is why it's called cross-cultural etiquette and behavior. Silence. So in India, we have this very interesting thing that I'm talking to Dhruval maybe, and we're talking offline, and both of us are discussing something. There's a friend of Dhruval who's coming from the other direction. The person, we are talking something very serious, and the other person just comes and say, "Hi Dhruval, hi sir," करके Dhruval से directly बात करना शुरू कर दो. So he's actually interrupting our conversation, and that is considered normal in India. So if fourth person comes, he also says hi, and then all of us talk. I'm talking about it not in terms of an informal situation, I'm talking about strictly from a formal situation. So in India, everyone talks. Is it there that I need to make my point, stop, let the other person also speak? Generally, it is considered to be a practice, but in India, we don't generally follow that. But is it acceptable in other cultures? So if I've asked you to say something, what should I interpret your silence as? Now people don't talk. If I ask them something, they just say, okay. They don't say anything. They just keep quiet. What should I interpret the quietness as? Is it that the person agrees with me? Is the person not agree with me? क्या है? So at times, क्या होता है कि whenever you have a presentation or somewhere or something somewhere, there is a chance if you're presenting before a big audience, they might not clap because it is a part of their system. You might think that मेरा presentation इतना खराब था कि किसी ने कुछ बोला नहीं. But is it expected? Is it insulting? Is it, when I mean respective, I mean it means, is it awkward? Is silence, the use of silence in speaking or using it anywhere? Eating. What are the proper manners for dining or certain food, taboo to certain people? That's a huge area. We're not getting into that. There's a lot of things to it. Yeah. Body language, very important. What are the different kinds of body language gestures? Are certain gestures okay? For example, let me show it to you. This is very famous. When we'll be knowing this, just have a look at this slide. These are some of the gestures that are considered to be normal in the Indian context, but are they acceptable across the world? Just have a look. You will find that certain things. And one more, I'll just show you one more. Is body language acceptable? What kind of body language is acceptable? One of what is not. Right? Similarly, if you look at this one, this is also a very famous Indian body language gesture. But different cultures look at it differently. So it's important for us to know about the culture. So this is about body language particularly, and then punctuality. Particularly during meetings, particularly during board meetings or any other kind, we are expected to come on time and finish the thing on time. Even in lectures, even in classes, it is expected that you should start on time and end on time. There is, so the thing that we saw, just my class is 2:20 to 4:20 on Thursdays. But what happens is that you have a class and we begin at 2:35. Now this is not acceptable in many places. So there's a lot of things that go into it. मैं अपना class 2:25 को चालू करूँगा. If you are there, you are there. If you're not there, okay, no problem. You missed it. So, and even in meetings, professional environment में meetings में है तो इंडिया में अच्छा 5 मिनट लेट है, ठीक है, चलेगा. और बाद में 5 मिनट बाद चालू करते हैं. नहीं, you start on time and you make sure that you end on time. So even in classes in the foreign countries, if some of you have been aware of this, is that they start on time and end on time. तो बाहर वो आदमी आके टक 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 नहीं कर रहा है, सर निकलो मुझे क्लास लेना है, वैसे नहीं है. They start on time and they end on time. There is no jumping. If you have there is no jumping the timeline that is given to you. It's just there. So these are the major aspects which are a part of cross-cultural etiquette and behavior across the world, and it is important that we know these things. The most important thing is awareness. That is why I brought this up for you. Awareness, it's a very important thing when you're dealing with cross cultures. You need to know what their greetings are. You need to know what their formality is. You know whether gifts are acceptable. You know what touching means. What is eye contact? What is whether they like conservative or contemporary deportments. Is it okay to display emotions? What is the role of silence? What are the eating patterns? So in India, we have this habit that all of us across the world, across India, we have this habit of eating with our hands. Very few use cutlery and different kinds of things in it. So yes, we do that, but that's a part of our culture. You cannot make fun of us saying that, yes, but there are certain things which you should not be doing while eating, like licking your fingers or smashing the entire food into bits as if you know that you are a strong hand. तो ऐसे पूरी तरह से निचोड़ना, ये सब चीजें नहीं होती है, एक चीजें हैं. Now there are certain cultures where certain food is considered to be taboo. We are not getting into that too much because of paucity of time. You look it up; it's anyway available. Even in certain cultures like Saudi Arabia, if you go to Saudi Arabia, that places, they have this community eating service, particularly during iftar. They have that. इसका मतलब है कि when the entire food is kept, biryani or whatever it is kept in an entire plate in front of you. From there you take and eat. You don't say that I'm not going to because किसी कोई और छू रहा है वो मुझे नहीं चाहिए, मुझे छूटा पसंद नहीं है तो मैं ऐसे नहीं करता हूँ. ऐसी चीजें हम नहीं यूज कर सकते. We should be more open to that way because it is their culture. तो हम क्या करें? Like for example, if you look at the Bengali cultural system, they have a different way of. Now, if you look at if you come to the south, even in the south, I was shocked once because I'm a South Indian and we've been eating food for a different way. We went to one of my cousin's marriage. He's from a place that people know as Trivandrum. तो वहाँ पे हमने सोचा कि हम लोगों ने कई जगह से खाना खाया है, मतलब सद्या जिसे बोलते हैं, the banana leaf feast. So we used to think, okay, उसमें बहुत बड़ी बात क्या है, कर लेंगे. So many things that happened, and the food, the habits in which the food was given to us, the way in which it was delivered, actually, the way in which परोसा गया, तो उस तरह से हमें लगा कि ये ऐसे कैसे हो सकता है, ये क्या कर रहे हैं. Then we began understanding in that particular region, food is eaten in this way. We're talking about vegetarian food, not non-veg food. Here, so be very careful about that. Even non-veg, for that matter. Do certain cultures really prefer non-vegetarian food? Do they do that or they don't? Like French have this habit of using wine as a part of their dinner rituals. And do Indians have that? No. In certain cultures it is there, certain places it's not there. So these are certain things that you need to remember while we talk about cross-cultural communication. There's so much, I'm just skipping that. We are not getting into too much of it because I'm skipping this part because you have already done a course on intercultural communication, so most of it will be repetitive. Even this which I discussed would have been repetitive, but it's okay. Now what we are going to do is that I want, it's 3:35, we are going to do a small exercise on behavior patterns. This is related to soft skills. It's a kind of a attitude test kind of a thing. It's related to attitudinal, behavioral. It's a mix of all these things. We're going to do that. It is a test which some of you might have already gone through it, but anyway, If you're going to do it, well and good. If you're not, then we're going to do it. It's just going to take just 5 minutes. I want you to take out some kind of writing so that you can note it down, note certain things down. So we are beginning it. This is what you're supposed to do. There are 3 questions. So this is the first question. There are 5 animals which I've mentioned here. You have to put them in order, 1 to 5. According to your choice. So the cow, tiger, sheep, horse, pig. You're supposed to put them in order. Your order, doesn't matter. We'll look at the interpretations in some time, once we finish all the questions. So yes, so I'll give you 1 minute to take out books or just mentally be prepared for it. So we'll just, so when are we ready? Shall we start? Okay, so I take the silence as we can start. So yeah, this is the first question. I'll move in a minute to the next question. So 1 to 5 following animals according to your preference. So yes, you may want to put it. All right, just a minute to 3:38. I'll move to the next question. I'm not getting any responses from your side that you're finished or you're doing it. कुछ भी नहीं मिल रहा है, एकदम शून्य है. So I'm accepting that you would have already completed it. Let's move to the next one. This is the next one. You need to write one adjective which describes each of the following. So you have dog, cat, rat, coffee, chocolate, ocean. You need to write an adjective which, according to you, describes the word that is in front of you. For example, irritating, or cute, or some kinds of things. Like you need to write an adjective in front of it. If you're thinking of coffee and chocolate, and if you're thinking of ocean, what are the things that are there that comes to your mind, adjective that comes to your mind immediately that you need to write down? Anything would do. I just gave you a few words. You don't need to actually follow them. Okay. Just a minute. I'll change the slide in a second. All right. Third one. Here is something which you need to be careful about. Write the name of someone who knows you really well, is important to you, and who you can relate to the following colors. So what you're supposed to do is that yellow, orange, red, white, green. Good enough. These are the colors. Now what you're supposed to do here is that write the name of someone who knows you really well. Don't write, see, there are times when we can associate certain people with certain colors. So what you need to do is that you need, the only caveat here, the only point here is that you need to write the name of someone who knows you really well, is important to you, and whom you can relate to the following colors: yellow, orange, red, white, and green. So you have 1 minute for that. Think and just write. Okay. All right, so let's move on to the next. Okay, now what we are going to look at is the interpretation of it. How do we look at the interpretation? This is called possible interpretations because I really don't see that any behavioral test or any kind of attitude-based test gives you a real answer as to what your behavior patterns are. But let's start by looking at the first one. So in the first question, I had asked you to name, shuffle down or reallocate or whatever you want to call it, arrange, or I don't think with the word, rearrange the words, then these animals according to your priority. So I would definitely want to know now, how many of you put tiger on top? as the first animal? Okay, meat, punch. Okay, very good. Uh, and even zeal. Okay, good. So you can look at the interpretation that I have given you. If you put tiger on top, the interpretation is that there is your levels of pride is very strong. For example, uh, just think about it. Do you get offended easily by people? What people say, or people do to you, or people actually, do you get offended easily? Yes or no? I don't find an answer. Are you a person who gets offended easily? That is what pride means. That it is easy for others. Oh, let me put it. There's another interpretation to this. That there is a way people know how to irritate you. If you have said tiger on top, then pride is the what tiger means. There's a very strong chance that people know how to irritate you because they know that इसको ये बोलेंगे तो ये जरूर irritate हो जाएगा या they know how to make you angry. और there are certain things that ये आप कुछ पर्सनल जोक्स अगर हम लोग बीच दोस्तों के बीच में पर्सनल जोक्स होते हैं मजाक उड़ाते हैं एक दूसरे का. The people who have put pride on top, I just want to know from them. You don't need to give me an answer. Just keep it in your mind that do you take personal jokes in the jest in the way in which it should be taken, or do you find personal jokes to be offending? My assumption here is that if it is so, then there's a very strong chance that you might also find small things are enough to irritate you. Very small things, insignificant things are enough to irritate you. I don't know, you might agree. Those 3-4 people who raise their hands, maybe it might be true. They are not answering, so I leave it there. Now the next one. Who put cow on top? If you put cow on top, there's a very strong that you take your work very seriously. So there's the people are generally people who put cow on top are, it's an interpretation that there is a very strong sense of loyalty towards certain ideas and certain things that you believe in. And for that matter, when you go to your organization, there's a very strong chance that you will be really, really loyal to the work and things come more importantly to you. The second thing about how related to work is that there are certain belief systems which you will stand by come what may. So there are certain belief systems, there are certain ideologies, there are certain frameworks which you will stand by. And in that way, if I want to put it in a different light, you are a person who would stand by a very strong sense of ethics and code. So that is what it means. Work का मतलब ये नहीं है कि workaholic. ये है कि आप अपने work को किस तरह से देखते हो. How do you look at things in your life? Do you take it really seriously? Do you have certain fixed notions or rather strong convictions about certain things? Because तभी आप work को ज़्यादा अच्छी तरह से कर पाओ. If I am a person who believes that I am a punctual person, that is my conviction. And that conviction allows me to be punctual every single day. I take it almost like a religious practice. So that is there. So I don't know, Dhruval raised his hand, Tokir raised his hand. So that is there. Now we move on to the next one is sheep. I don't know how many of you wrote sheep on top. How many of you got sheep on top? But if you're sheep, then you're a very loyal person. Loyal in the sense it's not loyalty towards everything that is close to you. It can be a job, it can be a family member, it can be a girlfriend, boyfriend, or father, mother. Loyalty is very important. You're a great friend because there are people जिनके पास दोस्ती का ये होता है कि they are like newspapers. आपने उसको बता दिया का मतलब है कि सबको मिल जाएगा वो information. But there are people who are ready to keep secrets for you. They are very loyal. Come what may, वो secret कुछ भी हो सकता है. It can be good, it can be bad. It can be even that you killed someone and you told him about it. वो भी हो सकता है. But that person is जो sheep जिनका आगे है, जिनका सबसे ऊपर है. They are those people who will stand by you, come what may. They are there with you. It's like Captain America's word that when Tony Stark asks him if we will fail, he says we'll fail together, and yet then we'll do it together. So that is the level of loyalty that is there. But it happens in a different way in the movie. That's why Tony gets angry with him to an end game. That's not getting into that. But this is the line. This is the punchline which any person who is into loyalty do that. We'll work together. If we win, we'll win together. If we lose, we'll lose together. So it's all about togetherness for those people. Then horse. I don't know how many of you put a horse on top, but that's family. So I have known at least 3 or 4 people who have left their really paying jobs and come to places where they want to be with their family. They have left a really good job in a different place, really good opportunity of getting a job, and at a place because they want to be with their family. So the family is important for them. Not, say for example, a really good job, paying job, it can give you a lot of future. It's a lot of future in it. फिर भी आपने छोड़ दिया because नहीं, मुझे ऐसी नौकरी चाहिए, छोटी नौकरी चलेगी, लेकिन मुझे ऐसी नौकरी चाहिए जो अपनी फैमिली के साथ में रह सके या फिर उनके साथ हो जाए. People who have this family kind of a bondage kind of a thing, kind of bonding with the family, not bondage, bonding with the family, would definitely prioritize their family, and their family is above everything for them. It's there for many people, but these people are strongly they have strong convictions about being with the family, togetherness. ये सब चीजें बहुत strong रहती है उनमें. People who have mentioned that as also top. And the last is pig. I don't know how many of you have used pig. Family men, women. Yeah, good one, Dhruvan. Yes, but not really if you look at it. Okay. There are those people who would prioritize family any day. So if the family is not happy with the kind of, say for example, they are not able to give enough time for the family, there are chances that they may even resign from the jobs. My family is not happy. I know of at least 2 parents who I know of, who have changed 2 jobs because they were finding that it was difficult for them to take care of the little daughter who is alone. एक ही बेटी थी, and वो भी they're working in a different place. They've settled down in a nice there's a place where there is a family quarters and all those things. So what used to happen is that both of them were working. So both of them did not have the time because they were in a corporate jobs. They did not have time for their kid, the child, and she used to feel isolated because कभी मम्मी के घर जाके रहना, मम्मी के पापा के फ्रेंड के वहाँ जाके रुकना होता था, कभी ये होता था, स्कूल से लेने के लिए नहीं आते थे, ये सब चलता रहता था because both of them were busy. So then they changed the job, they made certain changes. Now everyone does not do that. Everyone says that okay, we'll adjust. When I was, both my parents were working when I was studying, and I saw very little of my father. At least till my 10th, I didn't see much of my father. Because वो जाते थे सुबह 6-7 बजे नौकरी के लिए जाते थे. He used to come back at 8-9 o'clock in the evening. Corporate job था उनका. जब तक Havira finished our work or homework and stuff like that, and maybe on the verge of going to bed. The Sundays were the only days where we were together. And certain days Sundays भी नहीं मिलते थे. But he was okay with it. उन्होंने बोला इसको सीखना चाहिए. हम लोग काम कर रहे हैं, उसको जानना चाहिए कि I'm also working and this is how life is. So, but there are people who say that nahi, we are missing out the charm in our family life, so we should leave that. That's a wo hai. That's up to you. That's up to any person. जिन्होंने भी ये लिखा है. Now, I'll tell you what it means. We'll complete the test first and then we'll go to that. Last, I don't know, but I'm sure none of you would have put it, but anyone who's put pig on top. Pig is the first one. Generally, when I do this test with people, generally people don't do it. Lekin hai to hai. Now, those of you who prioritized it on the 2nd or the 3rd number shows how good you are with money. आप पैसे को कैसे handle करोगे? Are you that kind of a person who can handle money well? Now, many of us don't handle money well. I'm not good at handling money. जैसे one of my colleagues in this university, I'm not good at handling money, so I did not put big on top. For me, it was definitely loyalty. Because I put that when I did this test, I put that one. But there are places जहाँ पर मैंने देखा है कि वो लोग पैसे को बहुत they're good with money. वो लोग फिक्स्ड डिपॉजिट डालते हैं, LIC पॉलिसी प्रीमियम्स करते हैं, FD में डालते हैं, ऐसे करके वो पैसे सेव करते हैं, लॉन्ग टर्म सोचते हैं. And I am still that kind of a person जो आज पैसे आए उसको उड़ाओ, next अगले महीने salary आएगी तो देखिए. So for me, it is not, big will not be a priority. For them, it's a foolish thing to do, that you're not protecting, you're not saving enough. I've started saving now after a lot of forcings from people, and I also had a bad patch recently, need for money. So then I said that हाँ पैसे बचाना चाहिए करके बचा रहा हूँ अभी. लेकिन I never do that. अभी भी हाथ से खर्च हो जाता है. People who don't do that, ऐसा भी है, right? Wait, sorry. Okay. Now this is there. So what I wanted to say is, wherever you have put these things, आपका जरूरी नहीं है, मैंने सिर्फ टॉप वाला बताया ताकि I just wanted to talk about it. Now wherever you have put these things, just keep in your mind that these work, pride, loyalty, family, and money are some of the key areas which define your attitude towards life, towards anything. What is your attitude towards work? Do you see it as the ultimate final thing in life? What pride, work नहीं, pride सबसे important है, मतलब इज्जत सबसे important है, उससे नीचे कुछ नहीं. ऐसे सोचने वाले हो, do you believe that work और pride वो सब जाने दो, loyalty सबसे important है? नहीं, loyalty towards your job, loyalty towards anything, loyalty towards your family वो है family. You may be loyal to your family, but you may be a good family member, a family man or woman. But yes, when I need to choose between family and work, I prioritize. What do I prioritize? Do I prioritize my work, or do I prioritize my family, or do I prioritize money? कि मुझे किसी भी तरह से पैसे बनाने हैं, तो उसके लिए मैं कर सकता हूँ. I can work. Also, your attitude also shows that the only thing that you're concerned about is money. So the only thing is that, so these people who have money on top, who are the people who jump jobs quite fast, and the reason for jumping jobs is money. इसने मुझे 2 लाख दिए थे, अब ये 2,50,000 दे रहा है, मैं वहां जा रहा हूँ. So they keep jumping jobs once and again. So these are that kind of things which is there, a part of attitude. Now moving on to the second one, dog, cat, rat, coffee, ocean. This is again an attitude-based thing. That is what I'm saying by attitude. What I mean by attitude, rather, is that this is a kind of mirror to yourself. अपने सामने एक आईना रख के अपने आप को देखने के लिए. The dog is a view of the self, cat is the view of significant other, whatever adjective you have written about it, that means it. And rat is the view of your enemy. Of your chocolate is view of intimacy, and ocean is view of life. Now all these point of views define whether you are what kind of a person you are, and what is your attitude towards anything for that matter. We move on to the last one, and we stop here with this, is the colors. Now it may come at a surprise, you might say, sir, ये नहीं है हमारा, but yes, maybe not. Okay, so this is the beginning of what we call soft skills. The first job of soft skills is to look at ourselves. अपने आप को देखो, अपने आप को समझने की कोशिश करो. Try to find out who you are. So when I talk about priorities, many times when we speak about anything, is there something that we are missing, or is there something that we need to look at ourselves? ये सही है, गलत है, क्या नहीं है, ये सब चीजें देखना बहुत जरूरी है. So that is the beginning of soft skills. That's what we started today. We stop here because it's been a long class and I've been ज्ञान बरसाते हुए बहुत time हो गया. We'll stop here for now. In the next class, we'll take up more on soft skills and take it further. There are a lot of things that are related to soft skills, like negotiation, listening, not the listening which you did in communication skills, but listening for impact when you work in an organization, teamwork, conflict management, group work. All these things are related to soft skills, and these are certain vital things that are required when you work in an organization. So with that, we stop for today. Any questions you can ask, else I'm leaving. We'll leave the meeting now. Didn't give you a break in between, I'm sorry for that, so I'm leaving you early. Yes, any questions, or shall we close for today? No questions? थक गए होंगे, कोई बात नहीं. So let's leave for today. We'll meet in the next class and continue. This time I didn't show you any video. Next place I do plan to. That can be kind of a inspiration for you to join my classes. Anyway, thank you very much for being a very patient audience, and thanks Dhruval for the questions as well. Really entertaining, really enlightening, not entertaining, enlightening in a specific way. All right, thank you very much, and you may now leave the class. Thanks all.